Hello and welcome to Business for Entrepreneurs, where every week we are joined by an expert within the Senior Bounce community to talk to us about their business journey. And of course, this week is no different. We're joined by the lovely Caroline Peyton. Caroline, welcome to Business for Entrepreneurs. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me on to do this today. Looking forward to it.
It's lovely to have you here. It's lovely to have you. Tell us a little bit about your business first. So tell us a little bit about what it's called, what you do, how it works.
So my business is called Peyton Principles, after my surname. Sort of like the principles of good health is how I see it. I'm trained first in nutritional therapy, then in naturopathy. I've done iridology, I've done well-being training. My main focus is around using nutrition and lifestyle advice to help people improve their health. But in recent years, I've specialized and niched more and more into gut and digestive health. So many people are struggling with this. And I know, because I've been in practice now for about 12 years, I know just how much I can help people with those symptoms and their concerns. So that's what I mostly do now. But I still see other clients. Mostly I work on a one-to-one basis. But most of my clients are in that area, should I say.
It's great. And I can't wait to go more in depth with this on the grounds that I lived with said condition for many years and have now improved. But I want to talk to you a little bit about your journey, because funny enough, we were talking about this the other day, weren't we? To get, there's so many people out there now say, oh yeah, I can give you nutritional advice, or I can give you well-being advice, X, Y, and Z, and they have nowhere near got the experience or the qualifications that you have got. I mean, you haven't just picked this up one day and decided to give nutrition advice. So tell us a little bit about some of the qualifications, because I know we spoke about it recently. Tell us a little bit about some of the qualifications that you have.
So whilst they're called diplomas, most nutritional therapists don't train at universities. There are very few universities doing this level of qualification. So it's at level 6, which is the same level as university degree, but it's called a diploma because it's from a college rather than from a university. So I trained in what was called naturopathic nutritional therapy. I was still working at the time with young twins, so I was doing it sort of on a part-time basis. It took me 5 years to complete that diploma. I then, after that, sort of upgraded, if you like, and filled in all the gaps on my first basic naturopathy studies and did my full naturopathy diploma. I did an iridology, which is, I've actually got it here on my desk, my special camera that takes pictures of people's eyes, which is irises and the coloured parts of the eyes. And well-being coaching came a little bit later on. But, along the way, I've done a little bit of EFT. I've studied a bit of herbs, a little bit of homeopathy, a little bit of hydrotherapy, so a little bit of body work. I'm no expert in those. My main qualification is around using nutrition. But I have an awareness and an understanding of lots of different things over my years of studying and in practice.
This is fascinating, and I would love to sort of hear, so take it back a little bit, because I would love to sort of hear where your passion for nutrition started and how you came in to have actually a business that you run, that you are so passionate about, and that shows through the screen, through everything that we ever speak to you about. It comes across so well. So tell us a little bit about that journey into business and actually doing what you love.
Yeah, so I'm well into my 50s now, and so I spent many years in corporate life. But growing up, I was quite fat. Growing up, I was called Fatty. I remember junior school. You wouldn't get away with that now, would you? And it was only in my teenage years I started to get more of an interest around, nutrition. I think it came more from a being slim point of view in those days. But as the years went on, I went off to university, did a degree. But I was always picking up magazines. I was always reading about healthy eating, as many people will do today, although it's more online. But in those days, it was in magazines, reading about it. So I always had this sort of interest on eating in what I thought was a healthy way, although I think initially it was probably coming more from a weight point of view, but there was an element of thinking what I'm doing is healthy. I now realise there's a lot of what I was doing was not particularly healthy, but, you know, I thought I was being quite healthy. And then I went into corporate life. I was in corporate life for 20 years, getting more and more disillusioned, demoralised about the whole corporate life, not fulfilling, not rewarding. I'm sure many of your listeners would recognise that, and then that's why they go on and start their own businesses. But I've obviously ended up doing something completely different, and I can only describe it as a light bulb moment. Other people might use those words, but I can definitely say that's what it was. I remember I was in Portugal with my husband and our twins that were about 4 at the time. And it's just like, I can't stay doing what I'm doing. You know, it's destroying me. It's killing me. I certainly wasn't healthy. And I can't keep doing this. And, you know, my husband was like, well, what else are you going to do? You know, there's no thought of just sitting on your backside and doing nothing. And I wouldn't want that anyway. I'm not that sort of person. But, you know, well, what are you going to do? And it was like a light bulb moment. I want to study nutrition. And so I embarked on a course that was mostly distance learning that I could do alongside working supposedly part-time, but corporate jobs are never really part-time, whilst my twins were 4 then, or 5 when I started my studying. And that's what I did. I started on this journey to study mostly part-time, but there was an element of a lot of attendance at tutorials, which got more and more as the years went on towards the clinical practice year. But that's the background, really, in that I just had an interest, went completely off at the corporate tangents, having studied university and getting into corporate life and thinking that was going to be the life for me. And then, as many people do, realise it's just not fulfilling and rewarding and satisfying, and that just that thought of, I cannot think that I'm going to spend another 20 odd years doing that. It's giving to other people in the business. It doesn't give to you at all, does it? So
it's incredible when you talk about it, because I was in corporate life as well, and you were as well. And I think a lot of business owners are. A lot of business owners will sit there and go, I had exactly that kind of moment when I thought I cannot do this anymore. But to then take the step and actually setting up your business and doing what you did with 2 young children and a family and kind of working part-time, if we can use that expression, that's a big step. So what was the biggest sort of thing for you when you actually decided, you know what, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, I guess I was lucky. I did leave my corporate job before I set up my business, and I was very fortunate that I was in a corporate job, FTSE 100 company, so they did let me go on very good terms at the time. So that was a nice cushion for me. I was very, very fortunate to have that. But setting up in business, when it's a long time, it's 12, 13 years ago since I qualified. In those days, nutritional therapists I come from a business background, but had no business understanding about, specializing in nutritional therapy, how to market it, how to grow it. And the early years were very, very difficult. I worked exceptionally hard, working in different clinics, giving loads of talks in different areas. There wasn't the online community then. There was no social media to really grow your business. And I actually went off at a slight tangent in the early years. I had the opportunity to take over and run the college that I studied with, and that's what I did. So in 2013, for 5 years, I owned and ran the college that I had qualified, I'd studied with, and grew it, and it got much bigger. So I was still seeing some clients, but I wasn't seeing them as actively as I have done in more recent years, because I was running this big college and I was supervising and running clinical practice training for my students. I was getting more tutors on board to help, and running it and marketing it and doing all the business and finance and everything for this college. It became a bit of a beast. And then suddenly it was another light bulb moment. It was Caroline, you left corporate life to get a better work-life balance as part of it. And you went in this college that's just taking over your life. So it's like, no, that was part of a journey I went on to, at some point, that's going to be the last enrollment of students that I do. And from that point onwards, I'm either going to sell this college, or I'm going to gradually, honour all those students, but I'm going to just run it down. But somebody wanted to buy it, so they bought the college, and I could then do my passion and love, which is focusing on my clients on one-to-one basis.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So tell it, right, let's get into gut health now, right? Because it is a subject that I've learned a lot about recently, and as a result, I've realised that I'm not only lactose intolerant, which is probably the big one, but I'm also gluten intolerant as well. And I love ice cream, so yeah, I'm going to tell you how this.
You'll have to embrace the coconut ice creams and things, because they're
I've embraced it. I have embraced it. I can't even deny it. But look, the symptoms that I had. Okay, so let's talk about lactose intolerance first. I had severe eczema, eczema under my arms, between the thighs and my legs, that sort of thing. And it was where skin touched skin, basically. And for years, I've been getting creams from the doctors and all of this stuff, and nothing helped. And then I stopped consuming dairy, and literally within 4 days, disappeared. Now, I found that fascinating, like absolutely fascinating. And you'll probably be able to tell me more, but I'm assuming it's something to do with one of the proteins in the milk or in the dairy products, I should imagine. I started eating more spinach, and I realized that I had dramatic improvements in my gum health within my mouth. And I reduced my gluten intake considerably. And I've lived for the last 8 years, I've lived with sensitive gastritis, which is like irritable bowel syndrome. But it's mainly for nerve damage situations like myself. And with reducing gluten, my symptoms have improved dramatically. So these are just 3 examples, and that's just me, right? These are 3 great examples about how what you put in your body has a result on what comes out of it. But I'm sure you'll be able to delve into this in a great more detail than I am.
Okay, so talk about the skin. The skin is an eliminatory organ. So sometimes, maybe for you it was slightly different, but what presents on the skin is a sign of the imbalances going on in the body, potentially toxic overload. Why is there toxic overload? Is it coming from the gut? Is it coming from the liver? As a starting point, I would always be looking at those connections with any type of skin conditions. Thinking about gluten and thinking about dairy, and you were quite specific saying it's lactose. You've had that confirmed, have you, James?
No, I've never had anything confirmed.
Or is it dairy as a whole?
Intolerant, I think I am.
Dairy, okay. There's two different elements with dairy. There's the lactose, which is the milk sugar that we struggle to break down as adults, and it also contains a protein called casein, which can cause different types of symptoms for people. So there's 2 different elements with dairy, but we are the only mammals to consume dairy beyond infancy. I grew up with the Milk Marketing Board and, promoting dairy, and everyone thinks you've got to have dairy for calcium, etc., etc. But we are the only mammals to consume dairy beyond infancy. They don't eat dairy in a lot of Eastern countries, and from a women's point of view, and they don't have problems with osteoporosis. I'll just put that out there right now, that we always think you have to have dairy for bone strength. Well, not when you understand other sources of calcium and what else is needed. But let's go back to the gut health. So lactose is very, very difficult for the body to break down because we lack enzymes to break it down. And but we have bacteria in the gut that are called lactic acid bacteria that can help to break it down. So, and with gluten, it's what I call quite a modern grain. If you go back in ancient times, the grains were very different. And I think we eat too much of these foods. A Western diet, there's a big overload of dairy and wheat and gluten in people's diets. There's just too much of it. Now, most people can tolerate small amounts, but I think the problem is there's a lot of demand in the gut to be eating so many of these foods that often we can tolerate small amounts. But it's all to do with the digestive capability, first and foremost. If we got the digestive enzymes, the digestive capability to be breaking these foods down and digesting them, that's where the problem starts from, first and foremost, is looking at that.
I mean, we've had a few technical issues, so we've missed quite a bit of that. But
Oh,
No, it's not your fault. It's definitely the joys of live television, right? But look, I mean, one thing I do know, okay, and anybody listening in would know that, you know what you're talking about with this sort of stuff. And it is important. I think anybody who's having any issues, I mean, I've never been formally kind. I just know that I stopped eating this and this was the outcome. And I reduced this and this was the outcome. And so I tested it myself by eating a bit of dairy and the situation, the eczema came back. Or I eat, when I eat too much gluten, mainly the things like pasta and potatoes and bread. If I eat those kind of staple things.
I think a lot of us sometimes kind of test a little bit at home and see what doesn't.
I have a lot of clients, by the time they come to see me, often clients have cut out so many food groups because they often find, I cut out the dairy and then I seem to be okay, and then symptoms came back. So then I cut out the gluten and I was okay for a little bit, and then symptoms came back. So then I thought, I must follow a FODMAP diet. FODMAPs is what everyone's talking about. I must follow a FODMAP diet. Oh, that's really, really helped. If that's to do with the foods that feed certain gut bacteria, if you take away the fuel from feeding certain gut bacteria, it can reduce the bloating, the cramping, and all the other symptoms that go alongside it. The problem with it is it should only be done on a temporary basis because you're taking away the food and the fuel that's feeding good bacteria. So if you follow FODMAPs for too long, actually you could be perpetuating a problem of having too many of the wrong sort of bacteria, not enough of the good guys, the right bacteria. And so the problem can just deteriorate and get worse and worse and worse as time goes on.
But I think, like you mentioned, in the Western society, the way we eat and the way we kind of been brought up is we have such volume of different foods, and it's very hard sometimes to kind of nudge down to what diets to kind of look at, what nutrition to look at. So if somebody's looking into this and sort of recognize certain symptoms and things like that, what would you say would be symptoms where you should actually come to somebody like yourself and get sort of help with, because they've cut out loads of things and the problem is coming back? So what point do you think that would be good if somebody actually just seeks advice and see if you can help?
I think it's when it gets to that point where they're cutting more food groups out of their diet, but they're not getting relief. How long do you carry on living like that? If you're finding you're not eating foods that are staple foods, like lots of vegetables. Vegetables are staple foods that should be part of our diet. If you're getting to the point where you're cutting more and more food groups and types of foods out of your diet, and you're still experiencing symptoms and it hasn't gone completely away, then you really should get some advice. Of course, I would never say rule out going to a doctor or GP and making sure there isn't anything more fundamentally wrong. That's important that I say that. But often I find clients have gone down the medical route and they may have had colonoscopies, they may have had endoscopies, they've had different tests, they might have had CT scans and things, they can't find anything wrong, which is good news. But it's at that point I find people get frustrated, because there is no resolution. So I find myself, when I'm talking to potential clients, to sort of say, there is hope out there. There is resolution, there is imbalance going on in your body, but it's getting to the root cause of what's going on. Sometimes we can get to the root cause quickly, and sometimes it takes longer. Everyone's unique, everyone's different. But it's when you get to the point of, you might have ruled out, you've had the test done, you've taken food out of your diet, but the symptoms are still there, and that's not normal. Your body is telling you something is wrong, something is out of balance, because it shouldn't be like that, and we shouldn't need to live that way.
No, I agree.
Good. That's good news to hear. And
just to give you a tip on that, though, anything that ends in oscopy usually means a pipe going where you don't want a pipe. So my advice, personally, and this is not a professional opinion, I would rather go and see a nutritionist rather than a doctor, because I don't like pipes where they shouldn't be. So that's my personal opinion on that. And
actually, let's just talk about this, because a lot of my clients are recommended to do really in-depth, very thorough stool testing. Sounds a horrible subject, but the company I use is absolutely fantastic, and a lot of the things they measure are also included. It's far more detailed you get on the NHS, but some of the measurements are the same as what the NHS measures. The things like inflammation and blood that might be not visible with the naked eye. So when I have clients that may do that stool test, and if I see, and I've done this before, if things are shown up that are red flags to me on the scores, I would then be sending them and saying, right, now's the time you need to investigate and do that sort of testing, because it's flagged up that there is something that needs a little bit, more investigative pipes, shall we say.
So on that note, let's go back to business and the business journey. So, I mean, you've traveled an incredible journey, and from what you've built up on your own success of the college that you ran, that must have been a really fascinating sort of insight into how to run a business. But when you set up Peyton Principles, what were the positives and the challenges that you come across sort of along the way? Because as you mentioned, you had to all of a sudden have not just your business head on, you had to also think about the marketing, about staffing, about all sorts of different aspects of the business. So what has been sort of the challenges and the positives along that journey?
I think I'll focus more on the more recent years, because it's more relevant to talk about some of these things in modern, current times with technology. I hate technology. It's like if something goes wrong, I'm like, I don't want to know. I struggle with the technology side, so anyone who can help me with that. I think it's easy to say reach out and find the experts, but it's difficult when you're starting out because you can't necessarily afford the experts. But at some point in time, it's better to find an expert who can help you in certain areas than trying to struggle on your own and spending hours on something that you struggle to do and to do well. And if you free up your time, then you can focus on the things that you can do well that's going to help grow your business. So for me, God, technology, I hate it. And the marketing side of things, I'm okay a bit with social media, but it would always be not on the top of my list. So again, engaging with people who can focus on that as well. And in more recent years, it's been that niching in my business. And, I can't talk for every business out there, but that was a game changer for me in recent years, to focus on the thing that I love and I'm passionate about, has really helped me grow my business. And I know many people who are therapists, not necessarily nutritional therapists, who really struggle with that concept, because it's a bit scary to start with, because you think you're going to lose business by niching and specializing, but by becoming an expert. And it's enabled me to become an expert, because the more clients I see, the more experienced I get. All the ongoing training I do, I focus more in that area, trying to cover every aspect of health. It's enabled me to become that expert. So people come to me now because of being that expert. Whereas previously people were like, well, she's a nutritional therapist. What did she do? It doesn't really help you sell what you do. So
I love that. And actually we speak often to people when they're starting out and they want to focus on everything, because they want to be able to serve everyone and help everyone. And I think niching down sometimes is something really, really great to do, to be able to focus on less things but do them really, really well.
Definitely, yeah.
I thought Caroline was going to say. But actually, on that note as well, I think one of the biggest, I think, when someone goes into business, and you've probably experienced this, definitely, Caroline, is you believe in yourself, right? So you believe that actually you can help thousands of people, millions of people, billions of people. But the truth of the matter is, you can't. And the reason why you can't is because there's only one of you, right? There's only so much you can do. And I think when you realize that actually you can only help certain people at certain times, that's when you start to really focus. Because then what you're then doing is you are specializing in the people that are available. And also, don't forget that even though you know that knowledge, this is more broader now, Caroline. This is a broader statement more than anything. But even though you know the knowledge, the rest of the world may not always be ready for it. It's certain people that are ready, and they are the people that you want to work with. And I'm sure that you've experienced that for sure in your life, in your
Absolutely, yeah. you know, I know I could help everybody improve their health in many, many ways in looking at what they're eating and things. But the people, the potential clients have to be receptive to that. They need to want to change. And particularly in my role, it's not like having a massage. It's not like going for acupuncture or reflexology. In what I do, people have to do the work for themselves. So they have to really want to do it. They have to want to. One of the slogans I use on my website is invest in your health and I'll invest my time to help you. The individual's got to want to invest in their health, invest in their money and invest in their time and commitment to make the changes. I don't expect people to do incredible, crazy changes in what they're eating, but people have to need to do that in order to get some benefits from it, which isn't always easy. So yeah, individuals have to be invested in what they're doing, and those are the clients that I want, and those are the clients I guess that I attract.
I love that slogan, and also I think we've been so used to we've been so used to having those kind of, you know, I'm on the diet, I'm off the diet. And I'm sure you also experience people when they come to you that I tried this and I tried that and I cut that doesn't work. How do you kind of change that mindset? Because that must be about the investment that they need to do as well.
Yeah, the very first thing, so I always have a free discovery call with potential clients, you know, and have a chat with them so they can see if they like me and we can see if we're going to work well together. So if people want to lose weight, I'm completely frank and honest with them up front. I say I don't do diets. You know, if you're looking for a diet, you come to the wrong person. This is about, you know, this sounds a bit cliche, but healthy eating plans. This is about how you should eat. It's not just about weight, it's about your overall health. And yes, I can help you lose weight, but it's not going to be rapid. It's going to be slower, but it's going to embrace all of you. And not just about weight, it's whatever specific symptoms, because everyone who comes to me will be saying, I've got a few aches and pains, or I get headaches, or a bit of gut stuff, or, you know, I'll say, well, we'll look at all of that together. But at the same time, what I'm putting in place is something that's healthy, but should enable you to lose some weight along the way and maintain it.
Fantastic. Well, listen, we've got time for another question, one last question. This is the moment where I tell Charlotte we've got time for one last question. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to give, if someone was stood in front of you now and said, Caroline, what is your top tip about business? What would it be?
I think people who've got to be authentic and true to themselves. I think these days it's very easy to look online and think, oh, I should be doing a bit of that. Oh, look at all the social media stuff they're doing. Oh, like I can see, oh, they are now doing group programs, or, you know, they've got an online community. Oh, I need to be doing that. And I think you need to come back, and I'm going to use a phrase, and I'm sorry for the pun, but it's your own gut feel about what is right for you and your business and where you're at now and where you want to take it. And you don't need to just follow everybody else. It can be very easy to be distracted by what you think is the right thing to do by what you see online, but stick to what you think is right for you.
I love that.
I love
Sure,
that.
actually, right. We've had a lot of good tips on this show over the last 12 months that we've been doing this. And my mum always used to say to me, and I love my mum dearly, she used to say, Jamie, be a shepherd, not a sheep. And I've always tried to live by that principle, because if you do what everyone else is doing, then actually you're never going to stand out. And some people go, oh, I need to do this, or I need to do that because everyone else is doing it. And we had this conversation literally a matter of hours ago, where if you want to stand out, you've got to be unique. And to be unique, you just got to be yourself, because something else that I've always lived by is, my dad used to say this to me, Jamie, be yourself because everyone else has taken. He also used to say, learn from other people's mistakes, because you can't live long enough to make them all yourself.
True.
But I do think that actually, as a tip, that has got to be up there with the top tips that we've had on the show. So well done. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that's been a brilliant show. And Caroline, we still got with you, because I think it's just been a little bit of a technical thing.
Yeah, it just, I could hear you, but you froze. So I could still hear you. I heard everything that you said. So thank you.
Absolutely brilliant show. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. We've had lots of comments coming up and people watching. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. It's lovely to be with you.
Bless your heart. It's lovely to have you. And that's all. That's all we have time for. So we are going to let Caroline shoot off because I know that it's been a long day for her. And we're now going to end it for the day. And we will see you right back here tomorrow for another fantastic episode. You take care. Goodbye and good night.